Good midday here. It's May 11th. We are going to move the cattle through our wheat field to get down to a cover crop of hairy vetch and rye that really needs to be grazed right now. I had everything set up. I ran the wires. I was going to give them everything the first day, and actually brought Taylor down here with me. We're just going on a little afternoon stroll, and she said, "Hey, is there any concern with them grazing all that wheat at one time, having not been exposed to it previously? Would that be too much at one time, possibly make them sick?" So this is kind of the stage of the wheat right now. It's got a head on it, um, but inside these little pods, it's firming up more and more. It's still very milky in here. It's not really a hard grain yet. If I can open it up, but the seed is not, it's not brown. It's still very milky. It's still kind of growing. It's just kind of squat, very liquidy. A concern if cattle if their rumens aren't accustomed to it and they start on a heavy diet of grain, the sugars in that grain, it's the same thing that can happen if you graze cool season grasses too early in the morning. They can get acidosis in their rumen and get sick. And obviously this YouTube channel wouldn't be much without our cows, so we didn't want to kill them all. So we thought, you know what, let's give them this wheat in chunks. So we're actually on day 4 now of just giving them a little bit of wheat and a little bit more of our pasture ground. So kind of hard to explain, but we're actually going in both directions at one time. I've been giving them the wheat first thing, and then I simultaneously set up their next break of pasture ground, which is mostly weeds at this point. But it's something that they're used to grazing. So I'm slowly, basically on the grand scale, I'm slowly giving them more and more of a diet of this wheat every day. So we got one more break that we're going to give them today, and then tomorrow they're going to get the vetch and the wheat and the rye, and we're going to start rocking and rolling through that vetch. So I got everything set up for that break. They're all right here hanging around with the kids on the side by side, so Taylor can film me do this. So I'm going to roll this wire up and let them in, and we'll kind of follow them through. And you can see Taylor was concerned that sometime with horses, I guess especially, these heads on this wheat, it's kind of spiny. It's got these long bristles in it, and the fear was that it would get in their teeth and maybe irritate their mouths or something like that. Again, we're just kind of learning, but it doesn't seem to be hurting them or affecting them in any way. This is 3 days of doing it, and they will go in here, and one of the first things they'll go for is this wheat head. I'm guessing because it's very, like I said, it's like, I imagine it's probably similar to like field corn. If you harvest field corn early, it's similar to sweet corn. It's going to be very, very sugary, very, very sweet, and they really like these grain heads. So before they get completely distracted here, I am going to call them over, and we're going to let them in. So here they all answer to me. Whoop, whoop, and then they hear this reel, and they really start coming. Whoop. Once we get one to come in here, they're all going to come. I'll kind of walk out here and call them to me. Whoop, whoop. The calves are on the wrong side of the fence, but that's okay. So something you'll notice with cattle, every time you bring them into a new paddock, this one here was scared to run past the side by side. We got the dog on there. Before they start eating, almost every time before they start eating, they will go find out where the end of their area is and then come back and start grazing their way back. It's just something very interesting. So they're going to go all the way down to where that wire is at, and they're hitting it. And they're going to say, okay, I know what size my plate is for the day. And then they're going to start grazing their way back. Actually, this cow here she's got vetch in her mouth. There's some hairy vetch that's growing along this fence line. They are going to annihilate that when we put them in there. But watch them, they're just picking the tops off. One's going for a little bit of rye that's in there. But I think this is also good. Again, just with the total grazing mentality, even with an annual like this, the first day they didn't eat it very well. They actually trampled it down. They hadn't seen it yet. The next day they started to figure it out. Yesterday, they really came and they went through and they probably grazed the top third initially. Then they went up for water and saw that I had given them another spot. And I checked them in the evening. They hadn't even come back down here. This morning, the cattle were down here and they had grazed it all the way down. So again, if there's too much sugar in this part of the plant, and then there's some more, energy in these leaves, they get plenty of fiber to balance it out right now from this stem, which in a few weeks is going to be literal straw. So this has plenty of fiber in it. So if you can graze them in a way where they're eating the entire plant, I think there's less risk of that acidosis if it were ever a risk in the first place. I'm not convinced that it was really a risk. I think we might have gotten away with giving them this whole thing. But then again, they might have found out, hey, we like these seed heads, and that's the sweetest candy that's out here. And they might have given them too much, allowed them to just gorge on seed heads and not eat the whole plant, and had some unforeseen issues possibly. So we've got a couple mamas in here that are super, super close. Where's 11? 11's right here. There may be a calf out here somewhere we don't know about. 11's got a real big old bag on her. She's starting to get a little floppy on the behind end. 404. Oh, she's right here. That's interesting. They are going for the vetch first on the sidelines. I mean, she is just any day. I see the calves on the other side. It's no big deal. These guys got to go. Just this is an alley we're setting up, right? So they got to go back down the alley and turn to water, and then the calves will be able to get back with their mamas at that point. So they got to kind of figure out when we start grazing down here that, hey, I got to go through the gate to stay with mama. So that is something we'll have to keep an eye on, because yeah, did they go through the fence? Yeah, did they? Okay. Now they'll figure that out. They'll also learn what electric wire is at the same time. So everybody's learning. But when they get down there, mamas are going to spend a lot more time down there and only come out for when they want some water. So those calves are going to have to figure out how to stay with mama, and we'll keep an eye on them. We're not going to expect them to have to know where all of our wires at and why we got wires where we got them, because honestly, it doesn't really make the most sense at this point. We're kind of in a transition phase, as we talked about. This is all going into grass, so all of this fencing right here, it's all coming out this year. It should all come out because this is going to be one continuous pasture. So I say so a lot. All right, so we thought this shot here might show a little bit better as to everything we're talking about. You can see the cows behind me in the wheat field. Where I'm standing though, right now, they actually have access to this too. They just have to go back up their alley, come around our U-shape, and then we've got the Paraguayan, right? Uruguayan. So a couple people commented on our one video where I was talking about the PVC pipe gate where we just lift the wire up and the cattle go underneath, and I couldn't remember what it was called, but it's a Uruguayan gate. So anyway, this is what we've kind of been giving them at the same time, because this is something that the rumens are adapted and adjusted to. And I just wanted to do an observation. We're going to give them a slice right here. So this is what this looked like yesterday. And I don't know if the camera can capture it, but we've got a few different grasses, but it's mostly weeds and very sparse, some of the worst established ground that we have on our pasture right now. We've got Timothy or crabgrass, I'm really not for sure, but then we've definitely got Kentucky 31 fescue, and then a lot of this giant ragweed, or as my dad always called it, horseweed. When it's young like this, it is extremely palatable to cattle, but I grew up, I mean, this was vilified in my youth. Like, we hated this so much, sprayed it every chance we got, and it's understandably so, because When it gets too tall, it puts on a woody stalk and the cows won't touch it and you can't drive through it. And it'll get 10 feet tall, become a complete jungle. But when it's like this, I mean, if Taylor, if you'll view back there, you will not see any of it in what they just grazed. This is some of the very first stuff they will hit. Greg Judy has talked about this a lot on how much cattle love this young giant ragweed. So this is a big thing that they're eating. They are getting some of that endophyte toxic fescue, but it's not at a heavy enough volume. I'm giving them a very large area, so they're getting plenty to eat. We got a lot of young heifers that are calving. This is literally the highest nutrient load need for nutrient that they will have in their entire lifetime, because they're growing, they're nursing a calf, and we're asking them to get into good body condition to breed back again here in a month or two. So there's a lot of, we really need to be paying a very close eye to the condition of these first time nursing mamas. It's kind of a critical point in their life cycle. So we don't want to push them too hard. So trying to give them plenty, but still accomplish a total graze. I'm pretty happy with this. The only thing that they really left behind, which isn't gonna shade the ground too much, is again, some of this pennycress that's over mature and these wild onions. All of this stuff is doing its thing for the soil. And I do want to show something here that we are going to, we've got a weed that does a lot of benefits for the soil for compaction, but definitely is not a forage crop and can spread like wildfire. And we want to get some grasses established here. So I am going to uproot it real quick. But this is Canadian thistle. As it grows, it'll put on a really pretty purple flower actually, but it's very prickly. I've been pulling these up the last couple of years. It was this spot that I was pulling it up before, and there's not nearly as much here, so we've been gaining ground on it. I'm gonna put my gloves on and use a big set of channel locks, because that's all I had in the side by side. And we're gonna yank this thing out of the ground. And they don't like being pulled out of the ground, and they let you know about it. And they will stab you through these gloves, but it's better than barehanded. We'll see if we can get it up by the roots. And oh, it's not gonna want to come. I'm gonna tear it off. Okay. That did not work like I hoped. I do not have a shovel. Otherwise, that is the tool of choice. Well, nonetheless, we heard it. Oh my goodness. He doesn't want to let go. We may not get him up by the roots. Come back with a shovel and I'll get him up by the roots. Usually they come up by the roots, but he's got a death grip. He didn't want to go nowhere, but that'll set him back nonetheless. But they say that like when areas that are compacted, which rightfully so, I'm sure we have, I know we've got a sub-compaction going on, because when we drive our PVC or our fiberglass post in, we get about 5 inches down and it goes pretty easy, and then whoom, we hit a wall. And that just makes complete total sense because of all the tillage that's taken place. While tillage will loosen up that topsoil or wherever it's working on, it creates a hard pan underneath. So that's what we're seeing with that. So anyway, they've got access to this. I'm going to set it up so they can go through the Uruguayan gate into another slice of this, and then tomorrow we're going to give them full access to the bottom spot and lay off this for probably a week. All right, so we ended up we came down here to this bottom area that we've been trying to get to safely from the standpoint of the cows grazing the wheat and everything like we discussed. So we're standing down here, but on the way down here, we found another thistle. And I chose not to use the jaws of death on this one and just use my hands and pull it out. And it came out, and you kind of get an idea of why it's not a desirable species. Mother Nature, the soil, the environment is trying to talk to you with these things. This is great for actually compacted soils, and you see why. It's got this big tap root and then also a very dense surface level root structure as well. So it's doing its thing up top and down low. The roots on these things are really fantastic. The problem is they're going to spread like wildfire, and we'd rather get our grasses established in some of that compacted soil and use some of those roots. So if we see these, we are going to rip them out, but it's telling us something. It's telling us something about our management of past and what's gone on in the past, and we want to manage for a different future. So anyway, that's that. Let's say goodbye to this guy. If you can, this illustrates a little bit of what this hairy vetch is like. So I'm going to throw this out there, and you're almost going to see it like splash into a thing of water. That's how much this vetch is attached. So watch when it hits and how much everything else pulls around it. This isn't going to do it justice, but that did not do it any justice. But this stuff is just, it's just, it's just so interconnected. It's just a big mob, but it is excellent, excellent forage. It's a legume. It's risky grazing legumes too early, but if they get to this flower stage and they put on such a pretty flower, and there's plenty of bees and pollinators around here that are not super stoked about us being here at the moment. But it is great, great forage. I mean, like right now, there's a little bit of it along the fence line, and that's the first thing that they're going to. So number one, I don't want to waste an opportunity to harvest some great forage. So that's why we want to get down here. And number two, it's so thick, it's completely shading out the soil. And we really want to give this area a chance to get some more grasses, some more diversity established. And we're knocking on the door of a hairy vetch monocrop down here. So it's going to be good for the vetch, good for the soil, good for the cows if we come in and we graze this and we graze it hard. So that's the plan. Now it's here because we've done experimenting with cover crops. We are inside of our row crop perimeter fence right now. This is what we've been row cropping for the last 4 years. And we've been experimenting with cover crops. Very, 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 the most common cover crop is this right here, winter rye, and strongly recommend it. We can get into a whole conversation about cover crops and when and where and what, probably at a different time, but we've mostly done winter rye down here. And one time we mixed a little bit of vetch into the mix, and I can't recall exactly all the details to that, but apparently it got mature, it went to seed. Okay, so hairy vetch is an annual, which means it's not a perennial, which means it's required to go to seed to come back the next year. It's not just going to live off of a mother plant like grass would, or any sort of perennial like a tree, right? A tree lives every year. It's a perennial. It just survives the wintertime. That is not the case. This will die off. Its only chance at succession is its seed. So apparently it went to seed, and it is all over down here. And this is the second year. We must have seeded it 3 years ago. This is the second year it's volunteered, and this is by far the most intense that it's been. It's kind of telling that this ground, our property, vetch does really well, and it's a desirable species. So we're not going to fight against that. We're not going to let it take over, but through our management, we're going to utilize it, and we're going to incorporate it into the pasture mix in the future, which is kind of interesting because typically in a pasture mix you would only use perennials. But again, this does so well here, and apparently it reseeds so well that we're gonna utilize it. It's gonna help fill in the bare spaces where the cool season grasses just can't quite do their thing yet. So this is where we're headed. This is what we're doing. We're just kind of taking our time because we don't want to get cattle sick along the way and get acidosis or too much scours or anything like that. So we're kind of taking our time and watching the cattle and watching how they do. And so far, so good. We're excited to get down here and make a meal out of this. I'm just going to walk through this vetch, and hopefully you can kind of see just how thick it is, and then multiply what I walk through by about 4 or 5 acres, and that's what we got going on right now. So if you were a fugitive on the run, this is not the place to be. So just some general takeaways on this whole thing. Excuse my children in the background. You kind of got to observe your forage and adapt with what you got. We're not in a perfect situation where we've got all perennial grasses right now, right? We want to get there. We're very clear on that. But it's not a cut and dry situation. So we're adapting to different annuals that we have. Some annuals are hairy vetch, rye, the giant ragweed, the wheat, lots of other weeds right now, right? And we're trying the pennycress. These are all annual crops that go through their cycle of life a lot faster. So their window of opportunity to graze them and to have a productive grazing on them is very narrow. It's not as simple as grazing perennials, right? Same principles apply to perennials, there's just a lot more forgiveness in the time frame. You graze an annual at the wrong time, it can be deadly to your cattle, right? If we would wait and let this wheat get more and more mature, where it left that milky stage, went to a full-on grain head, our cattle don't get fed grain, and all of a sudden they're grazing copious amounts of wheat grain. They're going to get acidosis. They're going to get sick. We're going to have problems, right? So I think the takeaway from this whole video is just, you know, observe, adapt. If you're going to do a change, do it slowly, right? We gave them just a chunk at a time. We're not seeing any adverse effects to that. Tomorrow, you know, and at the same time, they're getting some of this vetch, so their rumens are getting used to that as well. The slice that we're going to get them tomorrow is just going to have a little bit of vetch and a little less wheat. And then as they go, they're going to get a little more vetch and a little more rye. So I'm really comfortable with how we're doing this. It's going to be a very gradual process. You know, we're getting this legume, this vetch, that is a legume, so it's very high in proteins. Again, some other legumes are like clover, alfalfa, and then this vetch. Those are the most common ones that we're going to have. They're very high protein, and you'll hear people talking about grazing legumes and the concern with it. Good friend of mine that we just got interviewed, Jared Blumen, on the used to be the Herd Quitter podcast, but it's now the Ranching Returns podcast. Just talking with him about some of this stuff, they've got to the point where they try to avoid um, legumes in a lot of their pastures because they've had so many issues with bloat, and that's something that'll happen. They'll get that high protein. I don't claim to be the scientist to fully understand all of this, but it's a real concern, especially when you graze it with the frost or early in the morning or when it's wet. It's a lot more finicky. So we're waiting till it gets very mature. It's got enough fiber to it. I don't know if you can catch this on here, babe, but it's got enough fiber in the stem. If I didn't have my gloves on, I could show it better, but see that? There's enough fiber in here. A lot of guys will say to wait to graze like alfalfa before it has until it has a flower on it. Again, stating that it's more mature, it's more of an all-around balanced diet. So that's what we're doing. We're going to get into this. I'm really excited to see how they do on it. I really think we're going to have some young lactating mamas really just thrive and do really well on it. We'll probably bring a bale down here just in case, just unroll a bale up into the spot up here where it's a little bit more sparse. Number one, it'll help build some soil organic matter in that spot that is a little more sparse, and then it'll allow the cattle to say, hey, I think I've had a little bit too much of this. What else you got for me to eat? And so they got something else to help kind of balance that out. So those are kind of the takeaways. We'll probably do another video when where we just came from that kind of looked like a moonscape. Soon enough, that's what this is going to look like. We're going to do a total graze on it. We're going to rest it. We don't really know what's going to come back here. There's nothing really established. There are some warm. I know last year we had some crabgrass and some other warm season grasses here. So this might be an opportunity where we get this off. We allow some of those warm seasons that are just naturally here from the birds or whatever to establish themselves. And this might be a really nice spot to graze in August when you're going through that hard summer slump and you need something to graze. And this can be kind of a little sweet spot of some warm seasons where we can move the cattle to. Again, that's a benefit of that total grazing system too, is you can move them anywhere you want on your property at any time based on the forage that you have. We're not quite set up on that infrastructure yet. You know, I had to spend an hour and set up all these alleyways and whatnot, but eventually we're going to get to a point where we have way more control over that, and we're just really excited for what the future might bring. You get a shot of Dougal, my cattle dog. That's all I got, guys. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time.